Okay, so first and foremost, welcome to everybody. The new faces, the old faces, we're all new all the time. It's wonderful to see all the chevra here. And Ashreinu, just to get together to learn the words of the tzaddikim. And an attempt to hold on to Emunah in difficult times is already a big thing. It's already a huge thing. So Ashreinu that we're a part of it. So we have a ton to get to tonight. The learning should be a schus for Tinuk Ben Shir Yehudis among all the Yidden all around the world, particularly in Eretz Yisrael, who are requiring Rachmei Shamayim at this time. And I wanted tonight to take a look at Likutei Moharan Kuf Lamed Gimel 133. For those who have the beginner's list, which we're trying to follow, this is a bit out of order, only because the previous teaching that's actually on the list I just taught a couple of weeks ago. So for the chevra that follow the shiurim online, I just needed to give them something a little bit new. So I went a little bit out of order. We're going to take a look at Kuf Lamed Gimel. And before we do, by way of Hakdama, we're going to take a look at an actual Hakdama of the Sefer HaZayar HaKadosh. This shows up in the Hakdama to Zayar Bereshis, and it is Hakdama Dalid. And we're going to take a look at this. There's a ton, beyond a ton here. Mamish, we could speak hours just on every word here. We're going to try to go through it in a little bit more of a basic way, and then we're going to take a look at Rebbe Nachman's Chus Yagen Aleinu. Okay, so stick with me. I'll stick with you, and let's enter into this ocean. Says Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, Schusa Yagen Aleinu B'al Kol Yisrael Amen. Yoyim Echad Dahavein Al Keif Yama. Tells a story. One time I was walking on the beach, Al Keif Yama, by the sea. Very deep. Why exactly this takes place by the sea? Not going to be able to get into every Nakuda, but there's nothing random here at all. So the Heilige Reb Shimon is walking by the beach. You can choose to imagine him with shoes or without. It's totally up to you. Probably without shoes, I don't know. But he was walking on the beach, Va'asa Eliyahu, and Eliyahu HaNavi came. Va'amar li, and Reb Shimon reports that Eliyahu HaNavi said to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, Rebbe, in Aramaic, my master, Yadata Mahu Mi Bara Eila? Do you know the meaning of the pasuk in Yeshayahu, where Yeshayahu the prophet tells Am Yisrael, Su'u Marim Einechem, lift your eyes on high, Uru'u, and see Mi Bara Eila. Who created these? Seems to be a pretty straightforward pasuk, right? A person should look at everything that there is and see who it was that created everything. It's the foundation for Emunah. So what's Eliyahu HaNavi asking Reb Shimon? We're going to see from the answer. Eliyahu HaNavi is asking Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, do you know the meaning of Eila? What exactly is it that Yeshayahu was referring to when we say we should see who created these? What is these? What's being referred to here? Amin alei, so Rabbi Shimon says, well, I answered him, Elin Shmaya v'chelehain, Avda the Kutchabrichu. This is the heavens, and all of the heavenly forces, and the heavenly bodies, the planets, and the systems, and so on, because the context is Su'u Maraim Einechem, lift up your eyes on high. So Rabbi Shimon says it must be referring to the creations that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created in the heavens, Avda the Kutchabrichu, the handiwork of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of Hashem, the Islay Levarnash Le'estak Lebuhu, that Yeshayahu HaNavi is saying that the human being who has the capacity, like we spoke about in previous year, to recognize that which is beyond, to be able to look outside of nature and to think about, well, where did this all come from? Masha'inkin, an animal doesn't have that capacity, so it's fundamentally human to be able to do that. So, the Islay Levarnash, that the human being has the necessity le'estak lebuhu, to look upon all the heavenly bodies ulevar chalei, and to bless them, and to bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu for having created them. D'chsiv, and he backs this up by another pasuk in Tehillim, where David HaMelech says, Ki ere shamecha, when I see the heavens, masei etzbaisecha, the handiwork of your fingers, of your hands. V'goymer, then David HaMelech proclaims, Hashem Adinenu, Hashem our master, ma'ad shimcha b'chol ha'aretz, how mighty is your name, b'chol ha'aretz, throughout the earth and the creation. Yes. So that's what Rebbe Shimon answered Eliyahu HaNavi.
Yes, it says, B'psari.
That's right. Who does?
Doesn't David HaMelech say that?
Eiv.
Oh, Eiv.
Yeah, it's a pasuk in Eiv. Yeah, mi Basari. Basari is Rosh Hashanah as Rashbi. It's the IC as Rashbi. Right. Mi Basari. Okay, right? So ma'ad shimcha b'chol ha'aretz. So Amar Li, so Eliyahu HaNavi answered Rebbe Shimon, Rebbe, my master, Mila Stima Havikami Kutchaburichu. No, there's a deep secret here. Deeper even than what you've said. There's a secret that was before Hashem, the Gali b'Mesifta Ilah, and it was revealed in the heavenly academy, V'dahu. And I'm about to reveal to you this secret, which we're about to learn today. B'shata d'stima d'chol stimin, ba'ali iskalia. At the earliest dawn of the beginning of creation. Not the beginning of creation like Bereshis bar likim shamayim va'aretz, the physical world that we inhabit, or even the physical realms, the physical universes. At the earliest point where infinite godliness began to develop a crack, so to speak, to be able to even begin to create the possibility for any created realm. Like mamish, the earliest dawn, what's referred to here as stima d'chol stimin, the closed one, of all of that which is closed, concealed, hidden, absolutely transcendent, at the time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvoidai uva'atzmei, the Ein Sof, Ba'al Iskalia, came to become revealed. We're not going to get into the Kabbalah here, just going to read the words, very basic. Aval Bereisha Nakuda Chad. HaKadosh Baruch Hu first created, again it's all conceptual, it's very, very deep, a point. Just an akuda chada.
Isn't that what the Ramban refers to?
Hiyuli?
No, the first.
No, well beyond.
Yeah.
Nakuda chada. We're not going to get into the details of it now. V'das salik lemehevi machshava. And that nakuda was further developed to become machshava. A very big picture concept and portrayal of all that would evolve from this earliest, just mamish, seminal drop, a tiny nakuda. That this nakuda that became machshava, this gigantic universal vision, seer bakal tziyurim, within it was engraved, was drawn all different kinds of drawings, chakak ba kol glifen, and all engravings were engraved within it. Va'aglif boy b'tzina kadisha stima glifa the chad tzira stima. Kodesh Kadishin. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu etched within a flame. Again, this is all extremely, extremely poetic and mystical, but just bear with it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu etched within a flame, Glifu, the etching, the Chatziyur Stima, of one very hidden etching, that's Kodesh Kadishin, the concept of the Holy of Holies. Binyana Amika Danafak Migoy Machshava, which is the edifice from which this Machshava flourishes, blossoms. So in the hiddenmost realm, from our standpoint of flame, is you can't touch it, you can't grasp it, it's not physical, you can't measure it, it's here and it's not here. In that place, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu is beginning to unfold the dawn of creation, before anything, this is what's taking place. Ve'ikre mi. And this madrega, and I bolded it here because this is the important part, this madrega is called Mem Yud, Mi, Sherusa Lebinyana. And it serves as the foundation for the entire structure of creation. Just like you build a building, layer after layer after layer, floor upon floor upon floor, and within the building itself, the plumbing and the electricity and the air conditioning, the vent, and everything that goes into creating a building, the foundation of this whole thing is a realm that's called Mi, Mem Yud. And for those of the Chaver that are a little bit more familiar with some of these concepts, you'll be familiar with the idea of a concept called Bina. Right? Bina. What does Bina mean? How do you translate Bina? Understanding. But over here we're referring to a spiritual madrega, one of the creative steps of the process HaKadosh Baruch Hu undergoes when creating the world, early stage, which is connected to the concept of 50. As we know, Chazal tell us there are 50 gates of Bina. 49 of them were given to Moshe Rabbeinu. One more wasn't given to even Moshe, the 50th. Now Rizal says it was only when Moshe Rabbeinu was ready to leave this world, when his own personality was completely nullified, mamish nullified. So then he got the 50th madrega of Bina that was brought into him, and that's why the Psukim tell us that Moshe Rabbeinu was niftar on Har Nivai, right, on the mountain of Nivai, which the Arizal says should be read Har Nun Bai. He got the 50th madrega of Bina on the day that he left this world. Nivai is Nun Bai. So mi is a word that means who, right? Referring to, at least in the context of this pasuk, Ureu mi bara eila, see who it was that created all of these. Obviously a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the singular point from which everything else descends and extends. And mi, mem yud, is also gematria 50, right? Mem and yud. So over here it's a reference to the stage of Bina. It's the place which is still unified within Hashem's thought, so to speak. A detailed vision, much more detailed than just the Nekuda referred to, which can be seen as a reference to Chachma, which is the whole master plan, the big picture. In Bina, we start to look at the details of the drawing, of the etching. And that's what he keeps on making reference to. Tzir b'kol tzirin, all the different images that would unfold throughout history, throughout all of creation, all the different worlds, all the different stages. Chakak b'kol glifin, all the different etchings. It's all wrapped up into this realm called Bina, which is called Mi, which is the unified source of creation.
Mem Yud 50.
That's it. Mem Yud 50.
Is he saying that that's the beginning, that first, basically, as it were, Stima de Stimen is like the absolute first stage to make space for Machshava? Like
Stima de Stimen is nothing. Stima de Stimen is Keser. It's just absolute divinity.
He's referring to it as Stima, like literally like.
No, when Bishata de Stima de Chol Stimen Ba'al is Galia.
Oh, so
right. So when it began to start to go through the process of beginning to emerge into a realm where a limit could be created much later on, and time and space, and ultimately the experience of a separate consciousness called the human being within a world which conceals Hashem, where we don't literally see Hashem everywhere, hear Hashem everywhere, feel Hashem everywhere, right? So at that stage, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is creating these steps. I don't want to get caught up into every detail here. Just hold on to it. Mi, Bina, Mem Yud. And the way he says it over here is because it's so transcendent that it's like reality at that stage is flickering on and flickering off. It's called in the Zar in the Rishonim, Yesh Me'ayin is the realm of Bina. That is connected to what you said from the Ramban, Hiyuli. Right? The Ramban says over there, what does he say it on? On the word bara. Beresh is bara. He comments what's bara is the realm of Yesh Me'ayin Hiyuli, which is like this Greek word for Hayel, I think it is in English, right? Which is a material that's here, but it's not here. It's physical, but it's like metaphysical. It's somewhat spiritual and somewhat physical, and from it can be created everything physical. It's the root. And that's Bina. It's Yesh Me'ayin. It has one foot in not existing from our perspective, being completely spiritual, and one foot in being the earliest dawn of something physical beginning to form.
Primordial.
Mamish primordial, exactly. So the word of the Zohar is kayama v'lo kayama. It is and it isn't. Amik v'sasim b'shma. It's absolutely deep, hidden within the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like ikri elami. And the only way to refer to it is Mem Yud, which is itself a reference to how hidden it is, because what is me? It's a question. Who? We're not even able to point to it and say anything definitive about it. No human being ever grasped it. What is this mystery? What's the nature of it? It's something beyond us, so we can only say me.
It's like God, basically. This exists, but he cannot name it. He cannot say what it is.
It is a very high revelation of divinity. It is not God. It is a midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's one of the garments that Hashem wears, right? That's so close to that place of just Hashem Himself that we can't say anything about it. Totally mysterious.
It's like just after ayin, like it's ayin and then it's me.
Not just after ayin. It's two steps after ayin. Ayin is keser, and then chachma, and then bina. Okay, but again, not getting into the technicalities of it.
A lot of people say there's nothing and then there's me.
Do you think that's anything to do with the fact that he's by the yam?
Very much. I wasn't going to get into that. That's exactly why it is. Exactly why. Yom echad have al keif yam. Bediuk.
So yom echad.
Baalis Galia. So then listen to this. What happens? After HaKadosh Baruch Hu has this etching of all that will develop, all that will evolve, all that will progress. Baalis Galia. So then it comes to be revealed. Ula Iskre Bishma Da. Be'islabish Belavush Yikar de Nahir Ubara Eile. It wears a garment that's a garment of light. This is a reference to Chesed, which is the Midah after Bina. As the Pasuk says, Oilam Chesed Yibaneh. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to create the world, what's the first step, the first midah that relates to Sunday, as things begin to unfold? Chesed, and then Gvura, and then Tiferes, and then Netzach, and then Hoid, and then Yesod. That getting into the depth of all of these, we mentioned them very much in previous year. The creation begins to unfold. Yibaneh is the Oisios, the same letters as the word Bina. Yibaneh is Bina, right? So Bina in and of itself refers to the level where everything is prepared to become. Yibaneh doesn't mean created, it means will be created. And that's all wrapped up into the word Bina, into the realm of Bina, which is still beyond, right? In more than Nigla-oriented Machshavas Svarim, it's always referred to by the number 8. If you look a lot in the Maral, coming up to Hanukkah, right? The realm of 8 is always the realm of miracles. 8 days of Hanukkah, 8 strings on the tzitzis, which is related to bris, where a person can overcome their nature, go beyond nature, a nace, a miracle. Kriyas Yamsuf that happened in the schus of the Aroina Shel Yosef was connected to the midah of bris. Everything that's transcendent beyond is always the number 8. Because 7 is nature. Everything in nature is 7. Why? Because nature begins from the midah of chesed. And from chesed all the way down to malchus, which is the final completed process of creation, there are 7 midos. What's one beyond chesed? Olam chesed. But where does chesed come from? Yibaneh, from the realm of Bina. Bina is 8. And so Bina is always that which is transcendent. That's why, again, the Nes of Chanukah is 8 dafka, because it's drawing on that realm that's beyond nature. It's beyond nature. B'nei Vina Yemei Shmoina, we sing in Ma'is Tzur. Right? B'nei Vina, Bina, produces Yemei Shmoina. 8. 8 is related to Bina. It's the place where Yibaneh. And how does it look when it begins to unfold? Olam Chesed Yibaneh. And so that's the reference here to Chesed. Slabish Belavush Yikar de Nahir Ubara Eile. And then the manyness of our world begins to unfold. This world is marked by manyness. In space, there are many directions. 4 directions, northwest, east, and south, and then up and down, so that together makes 6, extending from the center point, wherever the person happens to be at a given moment. And then there's a manyness in time, where there's past and there's future, and the time is split into centuries, and then decades, and then years, and then months, and then weeks, and then days, and then hours, and then minutes, and then seconds. Everything in this world is split into manyness. Hot and cold, bitter and sweet, male and female. Everything in the world is splintered, which is necessary for Bechira. Because if it was absolutely clear to us that there was oneness pervading all of creation, we'd encounter Hashem everywhere we look. But this, that one, I'm sorry, I just said that, right? I'm so sorry. But once we get into the fact that we encounter difference everywhere we look, it's mastir the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's where Bechira is. Because we look around the world and we think it's just a jumble of a billion different things. Where's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's oneness here? So the answer is that you're right. If you only live within the lower realms of creation, where there are 7 days and there are 7 colors of the rainbow and 7 classical metals and 7 musical notes and 7 continents and 7 oceans and 7 planets, etc., etc., if you only live in that place, so then you'll never find Hashem. Because all you're looking at is the Eila. All you're looking at is creation that you're experiencing day after day and place after place, experience after experience, circumstance after circumstance. But Eliyahu HaNavi is telling us, and this is what Eliyahu HaNavi is teaching Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, that the truth is that ultimately there's a way of looking beyond this physical realm. Su'umarim einechem doesn't just mean look up at the sky, like Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai said. Well, Hashem created all the planets. Isn't that wonderful? Ki era, right? Ki era shemecha masei etzbeisecha. Sure, you look at the planets, you see a comet, you see the moon, you see the sun, and you say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what an incredible creation you created. It's true. But says Eliyahu HaNavi, it's referring to a spiritual truth that's so much deeper. Su'umarim einechem doesn't, again, mean look up physically. It means look toward the spiritual source for everything that you see around you. U're'u, and see me, bara ele. Look toward Bina, toward the unified image, which contains within it the vast multiplicity and diversity of creation. But all of it is categorized within one picture frame. And that picture frame is the picture frame of divinity. And in that sense, Eliyahu HaNavi, there's a lot going on in the picture, but it all came from one paintbrush. It all came, the entire book came from one pen dipped in one inkwell.
So how does one actually exit that vision?
That's what we're going to learn about in Rebbe Nachman. But this is the secret that Yeshayahu was teaching. U'u mi bara ele. I'm sorry, what did you want to say?
It's not possible to have only the awareness, at least there's no multiness, because the moment that you don't have it, there's really no human being, because then there's only Hashem.
Bidyuk. And that is why Moshe Rabbeinu was not able to access the 50th gate of Bina all the while that he was alive. Right. And the second that he did, what happened? Says the Pasuk, Ish lo yada. Not even anybody knew where Moshe Rabbeinu was buried. Says the Gemara, Rebbe Nachman talks about this in Torah Dalet, I think we mentioned this as well. Ev afilu Moshe lo yada. Even Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know where he was buried. Well, what does that mean? He himself knows where he at least a spiritual, some element within him is still present. There's a nefesh in the guf. We spoke about previous year, the luzbon, right, on Thursday night, the kusta, the chiyusa. There's something there of Moshe Rabbeinu that knows. Says Rebbe Nachman, no. At the time of Moshe Rabbeinu's petira, on Har Nivai Nun Bai, there was no Moshe Rabbeinu left with any das to know anything about anything. Moshe Rabbeinu was batal legabe de ein sof. This is what's meant by in the Zohar Kadosh when it says that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter b'shas rava de ravin istalik. He disappeared into the keser of Hashem, into the will of Hashem, where there is nothing at that stage but godliness alone. And that's why all the while that Moshe Rabbeinu was alive, even Moshe, who had attained this incredible expanded consciousness of the greatest tzaddik, the greatest navi, asmaklaria me'ira, shechina medaberes b'seich groinai, all these things are very deep to understand. Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't access the 50th gate because he had to have a sense of self. Because if you take this train all the way to the last station, then you're a part of divinity as well. And that can't be. For the purpose of the tikkun, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs human beings recognizing His presence in the world. So that's 1,000% right.
Is that a contradiction, though?
How so?
Because if the whole idea of the me is the bina,
right?
There can only be a bina, an understanding or an insight, if there is a seeing be. As in, if there is, in this scenario, for example, Moshe Rabbeinu understanding the me, but you can't.
That's right.
Can't have both.
That is the point. That when the 50th gate comes in, it's like boyim ka'achas. That's a mystery. How do you cross that boundary? That's a big secret. That's the secret of tzimtzum, this one-way mirror, where from Hashem's perspective, as the Nefesh HaChaim speaks about in Shar Gimel, it's a deep secret. It's the deepest secret. It's the side of Bechira and Yediyah. It cuts to the core of everything, right? Where from Hashem's perspective, there's nothing but godliness. From our perspective, we exist and He exists. This is the secret. How do you cross that boundary? How does a person break past the experience of Bechira to recognize, like the Rambam says, that it's also true that Hashem already knows everything from the beginning? We can't. We can't. It is a paradox. An unbridgeable paradox. But Moshe Rabbeinu experienced the shattering of this illusion.
So is there no guf left, like Chanech, like Moshe?
I don't know, but it was playing games, because whoever was on the bottom, it looked like it was on top. Whoever went on top, so it's not part of this world anymore. I don't know, but this is what Yeshayahu is telling us. Bal is Galia uliskre b'shma ve'islabish b'lavush yikar denahir ubara eile. And now, from Chesed onward, the manyness of these, not just who, which is one singular source, but it goes into these. V'slik Eila b'shma. And then you know what happened? The letters Aleph, Lamed, Hey joined together with the letters Mi. There was a yichud. Mi, Mem Yud, began to extend into the lower realms, which is called Aleph, Lamed, Hey, and these letters came together. Ischabron, Asvun, Elain, Be'elain. These letters combined, these with those, or this, right? Mi, this with those. V'ishlim, B'shma Elokim. And together they formed this shame of Elokim, which is the letters Eila, together with the letters Mi. Mi and Eila together, scrambled a bit, spell the shame Elokim.
And working backwards, from our perspective, we see the Eila first before the...
Yes, Eila, yeah, but still it's Yam. So it's a bit scrambled, but yes. This is Elokim. V'ad loy bara Eila loy salik b'shma Elokim. Until Eila was revealed, and Hashem took the later stages of creation from day 1 to day 2 to day 3 to day 4 and unfolded all the midos and all the manifestations of those traits within the physical world, we did not have the shame Elokim. This is very, very deep. This is what it means, that those who sinned by the Chetei Egel Amru said, Eile Elohecha Yisrael. These are your God. Or in a very, very deep way. Again, this is not really our sugya. Take a look at the Meshech Chachma, has a very deep mahalach in this. They basically said, well, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to come down into this world, so then we could literally begin to celebrate the thisness of this world as divine without needing to connect it back to the Creator. We can just bask in the divinity of this worldliness, of just a golden element, a physical calf, the Gashmias of Gashmias. And so this is what they meant when they said Eila Elohecha Yisrael. We can take the Eila from Elokim, and we don't need to anymore connect to the transcendent spiritual element. If godliness descends, let it descend, and let it descend ultimately. And that was a big mistake. And that was the Chetei Egel. Eila Elohecha Yisrael. And once this process unfolded from the earliest stages in spirituality of unity of me down into the Eila, Hach Yushma de Ishtativ Tadir. Now this is all we refer to it just by this name, Elokim. Uberazadai Skayim Alma, and the whole entire world. It's so important to sentence these 3 paragraphs. The whole entire experience of existence is all wrapped up into these 5 letters. Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Mem, Yud, or Yud, Mem. Elokim. Spanning the earliest revelation in the spiritual realm that includes everything, just the Nakuda, the dot, that then progresses to expand and materialize stage after stage after stage, Mida after Mida, world after world, until here we are. It's all wrapped up into this. And then Rebbe Shimon continues to tell his tale, Uprach Eliyahu. Eliyahu HaNavi then flew away. And I couldn't see him anymore. And from him I know this deep secret, the secret of this pasuk, Su'u maraim einechem u're'u mi bara eileh. Rebbe Eliezer, and the Zohar Kodesh finishes, Rebbe Eliezer, the son of Rebbe Shimon, V'kula Chavraya, and all the Heilige Chavraya, they were called Chavraya, they were called friends. This deep group of friends, they came, V'ishtatchu kamei, and they bowed down, they just fell over right in front of Rebbe Shimon, Bachu, and they cried. You find this a lot in the Zohar Kodesh, full of crying. It takes a lot of thought to decode the mystery of this crying in the Zohar Kodesh. A ton of crying all the time. Bachu, they cried. Va'amru, and they said, that's definitely a part of it. There are many aspects and layers to this crying. Bachu. Va'amru, and they said, Il mali loy asina la'alma el l'mishma da. If we had only come into this world to just hear this, dayai, it would be enough. Unbelievable. If we had only come to this world to hear this side of mi bara eileh, that makes up this name Elokim, die. That would be enough.
Is it the same way as they say it, or that's something they say often?
I don't know. I'm not sure. But they say it here. They say it here, and you and I know that the name Elikim is Gematria 86, which is Gematria, the word Hateva, with a Hey. Hateva, nature. And so that means that automatically, the way that a Yid looks at nature, to rectify the Cheta Egal, where we don't just look at this worldliness, but we understand that everything progresses and proceeds from a unified source, from an Ar.
Or plan.
So that means that we don't see nature, we see the extension of divinity. That manifests in our world as this worldly processes that other people think are natural, but are not natural at all. Mamish, divine. Everything that we see all around us is rooted, just like the front end of a website or an app that you use on your phone. It's the manifestation of the back end code. It's not even symbolic of the back end code. It's not a vessel for the back end code. When run through the program, the code becomes this. So everything that we see around us, every aspect of everything that we see around us, beginning first with the body, it's the first thing that we encounter, really beginning with the soul, but that becomes the body, because the panim, what's outside reflects the pnim, what's on the inside. It's all divine mysteries. It's all spiritual code that becomes this experience of physicality that we're so familiar with. Why are there 5 fingers on the hand? Why aren't there 6? Why are there 2 arms? Why are there 3 prakim in the arm? Mysteries and mysteries and mysteries. Why is some food sweet and other food is bitter? What's the spiritual makar for sweetness and bitterness? Everything is founded upon the midas that are wrapped into me, the midas of the Creator, that are mysterious, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu chooses to reveal Himself. Lefi maisai ani nikra. Mida after mida after mida. Memela, if Hashem's singular light of me is shining through all of these midas, and these midos are the code that manifests in every single thing around us, the colors, the measurements, the three-dimensionality, every second in time, and the different days and hours, then a person who's conscious is swimming in divinity all the time. This is what Emunah means. So Emunah doesn't just mean, well, I'm a human being who happens to belong to this particular religious tradition, and I believe that there was a monotheistic, unified God that created the world. Emunah means that I develop completely different eyes with which to experience everything that I experience. Remember we spoke, I think it was the first time we learned in this series, Nasan Einav Boy, how the tzaddik gives us his eyes. These are the eyes of the tzaddik. This is what's referred to, or we're going to see now from Rebbe Nachman, the Or HaTzadik, the light that the tzaddik, Or Zarua LaTzadik. The way a tzaddik lives is that he sees the light that is planted in everything. A light that, like a plant, begins in a seed that's buried deep under the surface, but that slowly but surely manifests, begins to sprout, unfurl, unfold, snake through the earth, and burst through the surface. That's how the tzaddik sees everything. Hashem. All the time, in everything. In every single aspect, facet of life. Not conceptually, experientially. In every sense, in every breath, in every conversation. Looking at another person's face, into their eyes. Understanding the sodos of teeth. Why are there 32 teeth? You ever think about that? There are 32 teeth in the mouth. What's the site of the tongue in the middle? The upper palate and the lower palate. Why are there 2 nostrils? Person who knows a little bit of these things, every human being you look at, Tselem Elokim, means much more than just, some metaphoric notion of us being created in the image of God that nobody's quite sure what it means. Divinity. Every human being you see on the street. And that's the human, right? Nature, the earth, trees, animals, each different kind of animals, different parts of the animals' bodies. When we look up into the sky at night and we see the moon, when we see the sun shining during the day, all of these things are not just reflective of the Creator because they are creations. They are, so to speak, divinity turned inside out. It's the back of the tapestry. But if we become trained through the tzaddik and the eyes of Rebbe Shimon and the Arizal and the Baal Shem HaKadosh and all the Mari de Pnimius, all the masters who are giving over this kind of experiential emunah, and we know the secrets that are ours to know, we're not even allowed to teach these secrets to Goyim. Even that which refers to their mitzvahs, you can't teach them. It's just for Am Yisrael, just for us. So you become a superhuman. You're living in the same world. You're Bechlal not living in this world. Bechlal not living in this world. So let's see now what prevents us from living this way. Even if we were to know all these things, why is it so incredibly difficult? Now that we've laid out this picture of there's a me that can be discovered behind the facade of the Eila, of the manyness of nature, what prevents us from even living with a simple level of faith, Kal v'chomer, living in this way, which is a completely different way to live?
Is that like a deeper meaning behind the Sheva Yipol Tzaddik? That's the idea of taking away those layers of the seven.
Sheva Yipol Tzaddik.
And then you come
beautiful.
to the Ayazarua.
Beautiful.
You say Sheva is Teva, so
Beautiful. That's right. That's what he's saying.
That's it.
Apiteva
That's it.
falls all the time, but the tzaddik realizes even though as Apiteva I keep falling 100 times, I will always stand up because I believe in the.
So that you're saying a slightly different shot. You're saying, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you're saying, Rabbi Yaakov, you're saying become. Is that where does he have the energy to get up again? That's already one beyond seven, because seven is nature. We draw from a place beyond nature and we're able to come, which always also connects to tshuva, because tshuva is gedola tshuva shemagas at kisei hakavod. We spoke about tshuva is great because it reaches, as the Gemara at the end of Sanhedrin, I believe, reaches the kisei hakavod and or Yuma. That also it's the same Ma'amar Chazal, but the Kisei HaKavod is related to the Midah of Bina. The Zohar Kadosh says that's a reference to the Kisei HaKavod, which is again very deep. Not getting into the whole thing now, but the face of Yaakov is etched on the Kisei HaKavod, from whom the 12 Shvatim split, and all of Am Yisrael develops from there. It's the oneness of Yaakov Avinu from which everything descends. And that's our source, and we are rooted as a nation, Ein Mazel Yisrael. We're rooted beyond nature, right? So when we do tshuva, we're returning to our essence. We're returning to the true nature of Am Yisrael, which is above and beyond. But I think what Rabbi Yitzi is saying is that in order to be a tzaddik, the Sheva has to be Yipol. Yeah, is that what you mean to say? Nature has to fall away. Sheva Yipol tzaddik, then become. Then you start to live, right? Yeah, but these two pshatim are it's the same pasuk. Okay, let's begin. Okay, let's begin to get close to concluding. Says the Heilige Tzaddik, Schusa Yagin Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael Amin. What a privilege to learn His Heilige words with all of you. The pasuk in Mishlei tells us, Va'irach tzadikim ka'or noiga. The way of the tzadikim is like a glowing light. Hoylech va'ar ad nechayin hayom. It progresses and it becomes stronger until midday. What is the allusion here? What's the imagery? What is Shlomo HaMelech intending to invoke when we see this pasuk? What is a light that gets stronger and stronger until midday? The light of the sun, right? L'chayra, the light of the sun. But Oirach Tzadikim is like the glowing light that gets stronger and stronger until the day. Says the Heilige Rebbe, Schusi Yagan Aleinu. Ki hashemesh ba'atzma mi'ira b'mekayim b'bishava. The sun is always shining, exactly the same. B'tchilas hayom, in the beginning of the day, u'be'emtza hayom, and in the middle of the day, and also in the evening. So then why do we experience sometimes the sun in its fullness, and then as the day progresses after midday, the sun's light begins to get weaker and weaker and weaker until finally it sets, so to speak. The sun doesn't set, the sun is shining all the time. Rak hamaniya, there's an obstacle, himachmas ha'aretz hamafsekas bein b'nei adam b'bein hashemesh. It's just that the earth gets in the way. And so as the earth turns, we, right, this is basic, right, we who are wherever we happen to be positioned on the globe, which is indeed round, believe it or not. There are some that still holding out, right? But apparently it seems to be round. So the globe turns back, And exactly according to the degree of earthliness which we are standing behind, as the earth is turning and turning and turning, so we're getting less and less and less of the sun. So the sun doesn't set, actually the earth sets. Right? It's not new to anybody here, right? This is, I think, very basic, second grade science.
When it's cloudy, you can't see the sun either.
Also true, exactly.
That's
right. And so that's why in the beginning of the day, the sun isn't shining so strongly. Rak miktsas, it just begins to rise slowly but surely. Al haaretz, until it extends over the whole earth, unless you happen to be living in London, of course, in which case we don't get much of it at all, right? But everywhere else in the earth, as the day progresses, the sun gets stronger and stronger. Says the Rebbe, the Nimshal Keinat Tzadik. The same is true for the light of the tzaddikim. Hu ba'atzmei meir tamid. The tzaddik is shining. And everything that the tzaddik represents, the truth and the depth and the clarity and the joy and the simplicity and the faith, the embodiment of everything good and holy that the tzaddik is shining all the time. If a person is having a hard time connecting, then the obstacle is on his part, not on the part of the Torah that's being taught and learned. Literally, he wants to use the mashal in a very literal sense. Just like when it comes to the sun, what is getting in the way of the light of the sun in us? It's the earth. Says the Rebbe, the same is true for the sunlight, so to speak, of the tzaddik. It's the earth. What does it mean? The earth? Gashmias, artsiyus. It's because we stick our head into the mud of olam hazeh, of the appearance of a physical world, and we can't see the light of the tzaddik, the light of eternity. People are just sunk down into our experience of the physical realm. So we're not able to receive the light of the tzaddik. It's the same thing the Gemara in Eruvin says, quite a lengthy, bit complicated sugya, on the pasuk that says Megillah Afa, right? That the Torah is referred to as a doubled over Megillah, and the Gemara makes a whole cheshbon over there, not getting into the cheshbon now, kad aifisle, when you unfold the Megillah, kad kalfisle, when you peel it into two, a whole complicated measurement, again, whatever this means, of the measurement of the Torah. Nimsa, the Gemara ends up making a conclusion that Kol Ha'olam Kulai, the entire cosmos, the entire physical existence, is Kezeres Echad Mishloishes Alafim Umasayim Torah, is one tiny seed against 3,200 of what the Torah is. 3,200 times what the entire cosmos is. Again, it's hard to understand on what level and what sense, but the whole world is minuscule when held up to the light of the Torah. And Psukim are brought there, Kol L'chal Tichler Isi Kate, Shlomo HaMelech says, I saw an end to everything, but Rechavim Mitzvaysecha Ma'oid, right? Rechavim Minayam, the Torah is so incredibly vast and broad. That's the Torah. Nimsa, says Rebbe Nachman, we learn from that Gemara in Eruvin, Shatar Gedoylo Rechava Ma'oid. The Torah is so big, whatever this means, right? Again, it doesn't mean literally physically big. The Torah is so vast, it's so deep, it's so giant. Rechava Ma'oid is so incredibly broad. Raksha Zeres Hakatan Shua Olam Oid Me Bifnei Ma'areinayim. And this tiny little thing called Olam Hazeh, with all of, and again, not the lowliness of Olam Hazeh. Think about the pinnacle of this worldly pleasures, what a person would think as the pinnacle of living in Olam Hazeh. Kiadua, one of the tzaddikim said, Shalei Asani Goy, he doesn't think of a person living in the slums. He thinks of the most successful person there is. The whole world stands stands before the light of our eyes, and prevents a person milirais Ar HaGadol Shal HaTorah, prevents us from seeing the incredibly vast light of the Torah. Even though the whole world is just, like we said from the Gemara, just a tiny little mustard seed. Like the pasuk in Eov says, like against the Torah, which is so vast. I mean, it's not even close. It's a joke. whatever the world could offer us, held up against the eternal visions of the Torah and the truth of the Torah and the depth of the Torah, it's a joke. So says Rebbe Nachman, but it's not so much a joke, because this is what you and I struggle with, at least I struggle with, on a day-to-day basis. So says Rebbe Nachman, what's going on here? U'lechaira kasha. L'chaira, this is a huge question. Eich yuchol davar katan kazeh lahafsik v'lachzus b'fnei davar gadol kazeh. How is it possible that something so minuscule is able to impact our access of something that's so enormous? It doesn't weigh the same. You put them on a scale, it doesn't move, it doesn't budge it an inch. The Torah and the weight of a Torah lifestyle against the whole Olam Hazeh. So how is it so disproportionately, that's a big word today, proportion, right? How is it so disproportionately powerful? Doesn't make sense. It's David and Goliath to the strongest extent. How does it work? The whole world is so small. That's thousands of times stronger. So but it's like the mashal that's brought from the Baal Shem HaKadosh, Rebbe Nachman's great grandfather. It's like a little tiny coin, and the mashal over here is exact. If you'll take this coin, tiny little penny or a pence, and you hold it in front of your eye, Yimna miliris har gadol, it can block out Mount Everest. Afal pisha har gadol alafim pa'amim, probably more. I don't know. I'm sure there's some calculation that could be made as to how much greater Mount Everest is in size and mass than a pound coin. Thousands seems like it would be much more than that. Millions of times more vast, bigger, wider. Wider than this tiny stone or tiny coin. So how does this work? Says the Rebbe, because it's all about perspective. Because it's right in front of your eyes, and that's what you see first. Therefore, it is disproportionately powerful in the sense of it being able to prevent us from seeing that which is thousands of times, millions of times, billions of times bigger and more vast than the coin. Until we're prevented from seeing that which is, again, be'etzem, so much incredibly bigger. The same is true about this worldliness. So we're born, and the neshama comes down into this spacesuit that we call the body, this virtual reality, immersive thing, right? Mamash, a spacesuit. And we sink down into the hevel of this worldliness. Listen to these words from the Rebbe, and it begins to become apparent to the person, and how many of us are living this way, whether we're willing to admit it or not, that when we think of the best possible experience that we could have, it's all gashmi. It's the best steak and the best whiskey and the best massage and the best etc. And that is nidmalai she'ein toiv mizeh. This is called good. This is the good life. And in this sense, because a person is so davuk to this world, and this world is what the person sees first, even though it's much smaller, it's just a tiny coin, but this is what's close to me. It could prevent me from seeing the incredibly great and wondrous light of the Torah, which is greater than it and deeper than it and truer than it and vaster than it, etc., 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 millions and millions of times as time is running out, because all of us have a little bit of a clock ticking over our head and to run out after 120, but it's not simple. It's not simple. But why don't we feel it? Why don't we live this way? Why aren't we aware of it? Because Olam Hazeh is what we see in front of our eyes first and foremost. And it's the same thing as the mashal of the light. Because the earth prevents us miliris har gadol shel Hashemes. So maybe there's a Hashem somewhere up there, but I see this world, and if I see this world, this is where I live. It's close in front of me, so it's physical. So if everything's physical, how am I supposed to access the spiritual? Afsha Hashem is gadol kama pa'amim coming out earth. The sun is how many thousands, millions of times bigger than the earth. V'ukamashal anal kamuva. And this is what's referred to in the pasuk. This is what it means. V'oirach tzadikim ka'ar noiga. Shlomo HaMelech says that the light of the sun is the light of the tzaddik rather is sunlight. In what way is it sunlight? It's shining all the time, just like the sun. So why are we prevented from seeing it? The earth, which means an olam hazeh perspective. Which means devekus in a perspective that sees there being nothing better than the pinnacle of this worldliness. And that becomes the sum total, 1 second, of our striving. Ka'or noiga mamish, says the Rebbe. The light of the tzaddik is mamish ka'or noiga. You taste a little bit of the Torah of the tzaddikim. You taste the Zar Kaddish a little bit. You're married to take a little shot glass of Rebbe Nachman, Rebbe Nachman, Likutei Halachos. You melt away. It's Gan Eden mamish. Rebbe Nachman said about Likutei Halachos, he said the Shlah said that his sefer is me'ein olam haba. Rebbe Nachman says, I say that my sefer is olam haba mamish. Olam haba mamish. If you merit to sit with Likutei Halachos, Likutei Tfilis, you could literally, your Bechira is batal. I mean, there's nothing to say. There's nowhere to go. There's no Torah like this. So, the light of the tzaddik is the light of the sun. But sometimes it doesn't do it for us. So what does it mean? The sun set, the earth rose. The earth rose. Artzius rose. Shlomo HaMelech says the light of the tzaddik is like the light of the sun that shines always. If there's an obstacle, it's because the Artzius is getting in the way. Even though the earth is so tiny, how could it block out the light of the sun? It's a joke. It's the same thing. The tzaddikim and their light and their Torah and their messages and their eitzes and their chizik and their stories and their songs and their light is shining all the time. But it prevents us miliris ara gadol shalahem. And even though their light is so vast, it's so small, it's so tiny, it's minuscule, it's pathetic. In Kalzeh, but it still manages to be mafsik. How? Because it's just closer to us, so close that we can't see anything beyond it. Mafsik umenea miliras ayram, and it prevents us from seeing their light. Kamashal matbea hanal, like we said. V'chalzeh, but again, what does it come down to? What's close to me? What do I hold dear? What do I choose to look at when I look at Olam Hazeh? Do I approach Emunah in the more classic, I would say, Gullus-oriented way, to think, well, here's a world, and I'm a human, and I assess this worldliness in the categories of the human condition, and then there's a spiritual realm beyond, and then there's a Hashem somewhere up there, out there, who created all this, who I attempt to connect to by doing mitzvahs, and by davening, and by learning Torah, and so on and so forth. Well, if that's my approach to Emunah, then I can very quickly fall into, even if I see the light of the sun, but what do I see first? I see Olam Hazeh first. But the emunah of Pnimius that's coming back to us as we're getting closer and closer to Mashiach, that nevuah-oriented, mystical vision, is not that I see a physical world and a God beyond it, but it's that I'm able to sense the me within the Elah. I do not see a physical world. I see a physical world that is only the encoded back-end code of divinity. And in that sense, the food that I eat and the tastes that I taste weren't just created by a spiritual being. They are quite literally an experience of the spiritual being who is present within his creation. The koyach hapoyel binifal. And if this is the approach that we take to Emunah, it's far less likely, this world, to cause us to hold it like the coin in front of our eye and to block out the art of spirituality, because there is no Olam Hazeh. It's all a joke. Olam Hazeh is a prosdar to Olam Haba, not just in terms of time, that when all of Olam Hazeh is over, then we'll get to Olam Haba. We can choose to see this world as a series of hallways to God, everywhere we look. Every drink we drink, every time we take a nap, every time we open a sefer, surely, every time that we daven, Every time that we have a conversation, every time that we speak, it's all spiritual. It's all spirit. There's nothing physical. That's the aura of the tzaddik. There is no teva. Rebbe Nachman has a lashon later on in the Likutei Moharan. Ein shum teva ba'olam klal. There's no such thing as nature. This is what it means. Umala aretz de'al adas es Hashem kamayim liyam mechasim. This is what it means as we get closer to Mashiach, the fulfillment of the pasuk that says the world will be filled with the knowledge, awareness of God like water covers the ocean bed. Why like water covers the ocean bed? Because if you ask a fish what it thinks of the water, it's going to tell you, I don't know what you're talking about. What water? What water? It can tell you what it sees in the water floating. It can tell you the different kinds of fish that it encounters in the water. It doesn't realize that it is within the water, and the water is within it. I mean, it is the reality that it's constantly moving and operating within. So the Mefarshim say that's what it means, that when Mashiach comes, we're going to recognize that we were swimming in godliness all along. That's what Emunah means. So if you look back into the pasuk, where this will come to the end, Va'oirach tzadikim, this is a remez that's already been brought by the tzadikim. Oirach tzadikim should be read Orches tzadikim. The light of the tzadikim is Orches. It's the light of the 8. It's the light of Bina. It's the light of me, the 50th gate. The 50 gates of Bina, Mem Yud. The me that's Bara Eile, that's constantly beyond the facade of the Eila, of the manyness. That's the Oirach tzadikim. And in that sense, it's it's an aspect of the sun, that the light is shining all the time. Because if I'm plugged into the eitzos and the thought process and the words and the teachings and the whole lifestyle of the tzaddik and the tzaddikim, we can live a life of arches, where we're constantly seeing that miraculous light that's shining through our experience of physicality. And so Rebbe Nachman finishes, if we'll just take the coin away, finally, no matter what stage of life you're in, no matter where you are on the journey, you just make a decision. You say, what is this worth? How good has all the goodness of Olam Hazeh been for me, that it got me where? Am I finally satisfied? All of us know that it doesn't do it for us. So finish. So take the coin away. Take the coin away. I don't look at the world as being a physical world. I don't take this place seriously. And I don't look at what the world thinks this world is. But I walk around, no matter what direction I'm looking up, because I'm looking in and I'm looking out. I'm looking beyond. And I lift up my eyes, and I look beyond this world. As I yiskeler as ar hagadav hamuflag shalatar v'tzadikim. Then again, I'm in the same world. I'm in the same Brent Street, the same kosher kingdom, the same family dynamics, the same experiences as everybody else. But I pashit live with my head outside this place. I don't experience what other people experience. We don't experience what other people experience. And we daven that everyone should wake up and be able to live this way, b'tedirus, which is messianic, which is the light of the Geula. Like we said, the light is so much more vast, thousands of times than this world, and it's shtuyot. But we take this world super seriously. We fall for the illusion. And we, each of us, are withheld for one reason or another from being able to do this, to see the light of the Torah, to see the light of the tzaddikim, which is ultimately the light of Hashem, channeling down through his tzaddikim, like the tiny coin, which a person holds in front of his eye, and it prevents a person from seeing the mountain. Like, it's so obvious, it's there, it's all around us, it's in us, it's life. But the Rebbe gives us chizuk. Aval bikal, he says it's easy. If we go in this mahalach, it gets easier the more that we train ourselves. It's a paradigm shift. It's a whole different way of experiencing life. It needs, it requires us to redefine everything. Mamish everything. It's a new consciousness, step by step. Says the Rebbe, you can get there, Bikal, easily, or at least much more easily than we think. Yuchel esalik hamatbea mineged einav You just take the coin away. V'teikef yira hara gadol mimenu. It's immediate because it's already there. It's not something you have to gain and like access and attain. The reality is already around you. You already have, each and every one of you and myself, already have everything that we need. We are already precisely where we need to be. We just need to open our eye to it. Take the coin away. Hashem is here. Hashem is here. Take if yira hahar hagadol mimenu. Kamoikin mamish li'inen olam ha'torah shavavara ba'alma. Ba'avara ba'alma. Just set it aside. Don't be dramatic about it. Just set it aside. You don't belong to this world. Hein am levadad yishkain. So forget it. So start to access the consciousness of Am Yisrael. Me and you together. So you just strip away that facade, that layer, and you take it away. Then you see the true reality, and you leave the dynamics of this world, the pettiness and the smallness and limitations and the etc. 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 We leave it behind. In that place where everything is full of light, says the Rebbe, Vahavin ma'oid. Understand this really well. What's the word that he uses? Of course, Vahavin, which is Bina. Vahavin ma'oid. And he finishes this last line, V'chein shamati b'shem Baal Shem Tov sha'amar, says Rebbe Nachman, I heard from my great-grandfather, the Heilige Baal Shem Tov, that he said, Oy vavoy. Kia, needs translation?
No.
Oy, we understand that. Oy vavoy. Kia oilam male ma'oiros. The world, this world is full of lights, v'soidos nefla'im v'nayraim, and wondrous secrets and mysteries. V'hayad hakatana oimedes b'fnei ha'inayim. But the yad hakatana, we could say, is a reference to koicha v'oitzim yadi, the experience of a selfhood, personal ambition, gashmias, things that don't matter. Or the coin is a very apropos mashal, because what does, of course, it mean? Money. This worldly currency, status in this world, trying to move ahead in this world. It literally stands in front of our eyes. And it prevents us from seeing the truth. So this is it. This whole teaching, this chevra is it. And of course, it's a lifetime of avodah. Rebbe Nachman says, "Bekal, we shouldn't get discouraged from that. It's meant to encourage us, step after step. But we can get to this madrega. We are not a nation where there are tzaddikim and then there are regular people. Va'amich kulam tzaddikim. We are all supposed to get to this level. Mamleches kohanim v'goy kadosh. We're all meant to be priests. We're all meant to be goy kadosh, a holy people. And the main thing is, this is what it means to be a yid. Su'umarim einechem. To live a life where we look up. Again, not physically all the time up, but to look at the heaven within every experience, and to see me. Who is it that's calling out for a relationship with me through this experience? Who is it that stands behind all masks? Me, bara Eile. And when we do that, we access the Or Ches, the light of eight, the light beyond nature, where this whole world is not anymore Hateva Gematria Elikim. It's just Eila that's reflecting the light of the unified creator of me. Should be zeicha to it, especially as we go into Hanukkah. That's what it's all about, the Or HaGanas, finding that hidden light, finding that one jar that turns into 8 nights. One light which turns into 7, which is of course another very deep answer to the Beis Yosef's Kasha. Why there are 8 nights of Hanukkah, the first night wasn't a miracle, but the answer is because the first jar was Bina, that already contained within it all of the others. So it's one that becomes 7. It's the me that becomes the Eila. More about that as we get closer to Hanukkah, as Hashem.